The sun was set behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, dyeing the orange and gold sky, when Emily Harper finished her work at the cafeteria where she worked since she was 16. She cleared the last table with slow, tired movements, but still, with that glow in the eyes of those who, despite everything, still believed in dreams. It was 24 years old, wavy brown hair, always tied in a simple ponytail, and a kind smile that did not go out even in the worst storms. The city of Ashford, North Carolina, was too small for those who had big dreams, but big enough to hide secrets that could change lives. Emily always thought she knew every face from there, every story, until the day he appeared, sitting in the corner of the cafeteria with a shabby jeans and beard to do, was a man that no one recognized. He looked lost, but at the same time observing. His eyes were intense, blue, and his humble posture hid something difficult to explain. Emily approached her notebook and a warm smile. "Good night. Welcome to Charlie's Diner. What will you want?" The man raised his eyes to her and for a second seemed hesitated. "A coffee, please. Black. And maybe an apple pie, if you still have." She scored and walked away, but something in her was hammering in her mind. It wasn't just the appearance, though a beautiful man with striking features and an air of mystery, was the feeling that there was more there than seen, as if he was hiding something, or someone. That night, as he tips at the end of his work, Emily saw the man walking away, without haste, as if he had no right destination, and she wondered who that stranger would be. Little did she know that this man was about to turn his life upside down. The next day he came back. Same shabby jacket, even attentive to look, but this time he had a book in his hands, Hemingway's Old and the Sea. Emily noticed. No one else in that city, Leah Hemingway. They might not even know who it was. But he read as if every word had weight, as if he carried experiences similar to those of the old loners. "Did you come back to another coffee and pie?" Emily asked with a curious smile. "Actually, for the coffee, and maybe for the conversation," he replied, marking the book's page with a bent napkin. "Name?" she asked. Jake Dawson. "I'm Emily." They tightened their hands, and in that quick touch, something silent settled between them. Mutual curiosity, maybe, or something else. Jake started to appear every day, always in the late afternoon. He asked for black coffee, sometimes a pie, and spent hours reading, watching, listening. Gradually, he began to ask about the city, about people, Emily told about her mother that she got sick and died when she was still in high school, about the father who left, about the two younger sisters they raised practically alone, about the dream of studying nursing, but which had to postpone indefinitely to keep the accounts up to date. Jake heard in silence, sometimes smiled, sometimes seemed to swallow hard. She didn't know, but every story she told was like an arrow hitting her chest, because Jake didn't say it was. He was not any wanderer. Jake Dawson was actually Jacob Alexander Dawson III, heir to one of the greatest fortunes in the southern United States, a millionaire with actions, properties, investments, and a heart in ruins. Once the engagement broke up by a woman who just wanted the money, he decided to do something extreme, pretending to be an ordinary man and look for someone to love him for whom he was, not for what he had. And there she was, Emily, the big soul, waitress with a kind heart, who didn't even suspect the truth. But the more he knew Emily, the harder it was to keep the scam. Every laugh, every simple and sincere gesture made the game look cruel. He wanted to tell everything, but he was also afraid. Fear of losing her, fear that when she knew, she thought everything had been a lie. And maybe it was. That night, while Jake walked back to the old car he used to mix among the common, he knew he was falling in love, and that was not part of the plan. In the following days, Jake and Emily became inseparable. Even with her tight routine, Emily always found a way to book time to talk to Jake, even if it was just a few minutes between the care. And Jake, in turn, is no effort to be close to her, even if it meant sitting on the bench in front of the cafeteria for hours, just waiting for an hi. You always show up, even without asking for anything. She played on a cloudy afternoon. That's where I breathe better, he replied. With a sincere smile, Emily laughed, swinging her head, but deep down, that touched her more than she would like to admit. No one ever talked to her like that. On a Saturday afternoon, when Emily left work, she found Jake outside with a bouquet of wildflowers, clearly harvested by himself. For you. I know it's not much, but I thought they combined with you. They are simple but beautiful, Emily cried, picking up the flowers with an emotional smile. No one did that kind of thing for her. Thank you, Jake. Serious. It means a lot to me. It was there at that moment that he knew. He couldn't hold back. He needed to take her to a special place, show a little of her world still without revealing everything. Emily, would you accept going out with me tomorrow? A different walk. I promise it is nothing extravagant, but it is a place I like a lot. She hesitated. I was not used to invitations like this, but his heart had started trusting Jake a long time ago. Okay, only if you promise we come back before 7. I have to make dinner for my sisters. Jake smiled, relieved. Closed. The next day he appeared punctually. The car was still old and rusty, the same as he wore in his scam, but his destination was quite different. A property in the interior of the state belonging to the Dawson family, but few knew to be his. It was an open field, with a small lake. In the center, tall trees and the sound of birds filling the air. Nature was pure there. No luxury, no excess, just natural beauty. Wow. This is amazing, Emily said, delighted. They spent the day talking by the lake, telling childhood stories, laughing, even dozing under the shadow of a tree. Jake couldn't stop looking at her, and when the sun began to put on, painting the sky, of orange and roses, he could not resist. Emily, I need to tell you something. She turned, surprised by the serious tone in his voice. What it was? He hesitated, his heart rapidly. It's just, I'm not exactly who you think I am. Emily frowned. Like this? But before he could explain, her cell phone vibrated. A connection of the younger sister. Oh no, it's almost 7. I have to go, Jake. Take me home. He sighed, swallowing the truth once again. Of course. Let's go. On the way back, silence weighed. Jake drove with fixed eyes on the road, and Emily was looking out the window, feeling that there was something he didn't say, and she wanted to know what it was. But she also had her secrets. She also hid pains that never had the courage to share. Still, something inside her said that Jake wasn't just any man, and her heart was already very involved to go back. The following days were marked by increasing tension between Emily and Jake. She kept thinking about his words, but at the same time, she didn't want to give importance to something that could just be a joke. Jake has always been so kind, so attentive. It could not be anything serious, or could it? She no longer knew what to believe. For weeks they continued to see each other almost every day, but something had changed. His deeper look seemed to hide a weight that Emily couldn't understand. One afternoon after work, Jake invited her to have a coffee. They sat on an isolated table at the bottom of the coffee, and Jake was visibly nervous. Emily, you have to know the truth, he started, the voice shaking. She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I didn't know if I was prepared for what he had to say. I'm much more than it seems. I'm not just the guy you know. I'm not a simple one. He paused, struggling to choose the right words. I am the heir to a great fortune. I'm Jake Dawson. Dawson Enterprises, Jake Dawson, the company you have probably heard of. The shock was immediate. Emily's world seemed to collapse around her. Revelation left him speechless. She looked at him with wide eyes, completely incredulous. "What?" It was all she managed to say. Jake looked at her, hoping to see anger or contempt, but that's not what you found. Emily was not angry. She looked lost, as if trying to understand something that made no sense. "I know this is hard to believe. I lied about who I am, about where I come from, but all I wanted was to see if you loved me for whom I really am, not my money for my family." Emily stood abruptly, pushing her chair with a shrill noise. Her heart was beating fast and she could barely breathe. You lied to me, Jake. All this was a lie. You are not who I thought it was." She turned her back and began to hurry toward the door, but Jake followed her, grabbing her hand firmly. "Emily, listen to me. I didn't want to hurt you, but you have to understand, I needed to know if you loved me for what I am really. I didn't know how to do this without hide the truth." Emily turned to him, her eyes full of tears. "How can you do this to me? All I did was trust you. You made me believe we were the same, that our lives crossed by chance. And now you tell me that everything was a scam. Was everything just a test?" Anger, frustration, and pain began to take care of Emily. She never felt so wrong, so used. And the worst was that she still loved Jake. But now the confidence he had built with him was broken. "No, Emily, please, that's not it. I love you. I didn't do that to hurt you, but to understand what you feel for me." Jake begged, his eyes full of despair. Emily looked at him, his heavy breath. "I don't know what to feel now, Jake. You lied. And lying to those we love it's one of the worst mistakes someone can make." She withdrew her hand from his, her heart tight. The emptiness she felt was something she couldn't handle. "I need time to think," she said before leaving the coffee, without looking back. Jake was there, paralyzed, the weight of what he had done weighing on his shoulders. He knew that losing Emily would not be easy to endure. He knew that the lie he told her had much deeper consequences than he could imagine, but he also knew he couldn't change the past. Emily walked the city streets, not knowing where she was going. She needed time alone to process everything. The fresh afternoon wind hit his face, but it wasn't enough to calm the whirlwind inside her. Jake's words were still echoing in his mind, and with each step more questions arose. How could he have lied so much? Did he never really love her, or was he really selfish to the point of testing his love for him? She tried to convince herself that Jake's lie didn't matter, that she could move on and move on her life without him. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be so simple. The connection they had was deep. She loved him. And that complicated everything. In the following days, Emily tried to move away from everything she reminded her of Jake. She spent more time at work, dedicating herself to her tasks as if it were a distraction from what she was feeling. But inside, she was destroyed. The nights were the worst, when loneliness invaded her hard. He missed him, his laugh, the way he made her feel unique. But she also felt a growing anger at being deceived. Jake, in turn, couldn't stop thinking about her. Repentance consumed it every minute. He knew he had made a gigantic mistake by hiding who he really was. He wanted her to know the truth, wanted her to understand why he did what he did. But at the same time, I felt that I was losing everything I wanted most in life, Emily's love. After a week of absolute silence, Jake decided that he needed to talk to her, needed to apologize. He sought Emily everywhere possible, but she avoided him. He met her in the cafeteria where they had last talked. She was alone, as always was now. He approached with a rapid heart, but seeing her, the pain was even stronger. "Emily," Jake said, almost without voice, "I know you don't want to see me, and I don't blame you for that. But I need to listen to me. I can't live with the weight of hurting you like this." Emily looked at him but didn't answer. She felt the poison of anger taking care of herself. But there was also a hole in her chest, a longing that could not deny. I loved you from the moment I met you, and I still love you. What I did was a mistake. I didn't tell you the truth because I was afraid. I didn't want to lose you, but in doing so I ended up losing me on the way, Jake said with tears in my eyes. Emily was in shock. She knew he was being sincere, but what he had done could not be erased so easily. She took a deep breath, feeling the pain in every word he said. I love you too, Jake, she said, her voice embargoed. But you lied me, and this is something I don't know if I can forgive. He took a step toward him, his face full of pain. Emily, I know I made a mistake. I can't change what I did, but I can show you that my love for you is real. I'm not just the money. I'm not just my family. It's me, Jake, the same Jake you met and fell in love. I did all this because I thought I needed to test the love you had for me, but now I see how wrong it was. I just want to have a chance to show you who I really am, without masks, without games. Emily looked at him for a long moment, the wind hitting her face, bringing some relief to her cloudy mind. She didn't know what to do. What he said made sense, but she was afraid to surrender again, fear of getting hurt. I need time, Jake, she answered finally. I can't make a decision now. I need time to think about what I want for my life, and what I really feel for you. Jake nodded, knowing I couldn't hurry things. He was wrong, and now it was time to wait, to make room for Emily to make her choice. I'll wait, Emily. I know I have to give you this time, but I am willing to wait as long as necessary to show you that my love is true. I will not give up on us. She looked at him, her heart tight, and the pain seemed to intensify with each passing second. I don't know if love is enough, Jake, but perhaps over time I can understand all this. Let's see. With these words, Emily got up and left the coffee, leaving Jake there in silence, with her heart full of hope and regrets. The following days slowly passed to Emily. She remained busy with work and her daily responsibilities, but her mind was always coming back to Jake. Sometimes she would catch herself thinking about his look, the sincerity in her voice when he apologized. But as much as he wanted to believe him, there was still the wound of betrayal. How could she trust again? How could you believe he really loved her after all that happened? Emily, in turn, tried to move on with her life, but the emptiness she felt seemed immense. She didn't want to give Jake a chance just for compassion, but at the same time, I didn't want to let a love that had been so real to her. She spent nights in clear, reflecting on her life, what she really wanted. What would be more painful, stay alone or try again with someone who had hurt her so much? Jake, in turn, did not know how to deal with the time that was going on without a clear response from Emily. He sent short messages, but never dared to look for her physically. He understood that she needed space, but her anxiety grew every day that she didn't give clear signs that she was willing to try again. The two were in a limbo, living with the consequences of a mistake that seemed to have no solution anymore. The distance between them seemed to increase as the days passed. However, both knew something needed to change. Loco 8. The travel-it was on a Sunday afternoon, during a party of a common friend, that Emily decided to take the next step. She met Jake again, not sure what she would feel as she saw him. The place was excited, people talking, loud music, but Emily was centered on what she needed to do. Jake spotted her at a distance and, realizing that she approached, felt her heart accelerate. He was nervous, still wondering if he would have a chance with her again. She came to him, and before he could say something, she said, I thought a lot about everything. About us. About what you did and what I feel. I don't know what the future reserves us, but one thing I learned, love, no matter how intense, is not the only factor that defines a relationship. Confidence is the base. Jake looked at her, surprised but anxious. He knew that at that moment, his words would be crucial. I know, Emily, I was wrong, and you are absolutely right. I can't erase what I did, but I can do whatever it takes to regain the trust I lost. I just need you to give me this chance, a chance to show that I can be the man you deserve." Emily took a deep breath, her fixed eyes on his. She saw the sincerity on her face and for the first time felt that perhaps, just perhaps, he was being true. She was not ready to let fear and anger define her life, but she needed time to heal wounds. "I don't know if I can completely trust you yet, Jake, but I'm willing to try, not for you, but for myself, knowing that I deserve to be happy with or without you." Jake smiled with teary eyes. He knew he still had a long way ahead, but that small opening of Emily meant everything to him. He wanted to show that he was willing to change. "I'll wait as long as I need, Emily. I will show you, with my actions, that my love for you is true, and that it was not just a mistake I made. It was a learning, and I am willing to learn from him, for you." Over time, Emily began to realize that the reconciliation process with Jake would not be easy. But at the same time, she also saw in him the man she had always known, the one who didn't want to hurt her. She saw her daily efforts to demonstrate her dedication and love for her. Jake was working tirelessly to restore the confidence he had lost. Over the months, Emily began to relax and let the defenses she had built fall. She allowed herself to love again, not blindly, but with more understanding and maturity. Jake became more transparent every day, sharing his thoughts, his insecurities, his fears. He no longer wanted to hide anything from her, no longer wanted to play with love. They traveled together to places they both dreamed of knowing, spent hours talking about the most varied subjects, and gradually Emily allowed himself to believe that he could rely again on Jake. Their friendship has strengthened even more, and with that, love has grown too. Jake understood that what really mattered was not luxury or money, but the relationship based on respect, trust, and mutual affection. Block 10. The beginning of a new journey. When Emily looked at Jake, she didn't see the man who had lied to her anymore. He saw someone who, with mistakes and hits, had become stronger and more real. She knew the way would not be perfect, but beside him, she felt she was willing to face any challenge. Finally, on Jake's birthday, Emily surprised him. Instead of a material gift, she wrote a letter to him, expressing all the feelings she had kept in her heart during all those months of distancing. She talked about the trust she was starting to rebuild, and how she believed that together they could do something extraordinary. Jake, touched by Emily's words, hugged her hard, and with eyes full of gratitude said, "I love you, Emily, more than ever." And with these words they began writing a new story together, a story of redemption, growth, and true love. After months of reconciliation and growth, Emily and Jake were in a phase of stability. They had overcome many of the questions of the past, but not everything was perfect. Jake felt that although he had gained the confidence of Emily, something was still missing. He was beginning to wonder if it could really be enough for her, now that there was so much weight in her relationship. Emily, in turn, also felt the weight of expectations. She knew that her confidence in Jake had improved, but she was not totally free of her own insecurities yet. She didn't want their relationship to be seen as a recovery of the past, but as a new chapter. However, there was something she didn't know, something that would completely change the course of history. Jake had begun to see an old friend, Vanessa, a rich and influential woman. They had known themselves during the early years of college, but the ways of life separated them. Vanessa had a clear interest in Jake, something he has always avoided over the years, but lately she had become more insistent. He never saw her as a threat so far, but began to realize that her behavior was changing. One night, while Emily and Jake were having dinner, Jake received a message from Vanessa. It was a picture of her at an important, smiling and elegant event, with a text saying, "I'm waiting here as always." This message disturbed Jake, and he tried to disguise the tension while he was with Emily. He knew the moment was crucial, but the internal pressure was starting to grow. What would he do if temptation became too strong? Emily noticed the change in Jake. What she didn't know was that this new tension was being fed by a person she barely knew. But for some reason, she felt something was wrong. The following weeks were tense. Jake was starting to move a little away. Without giving clear explanations, Emily noticed the emotional distance, but couldn't completely understand the reason. She believed that everything was fine, but at the same time, she felt a strange presence in her relationship with Jake, something that was no longer what it seemed to be. Meanwhile, Vanessa continued to send messages to Jake, more subtle and frequent. She knew what she was doing and was playing with his emotions, trying to make her feel guilty of leaving. Jake didn't want to disappoint her, but at the same time, he knew that the only person he wanted to be was Emily. This situation generated an even stronger internal dilemma for Jake. He didn't know if he should completely cut contact with Vanessa, or if he was missing an opportunity to reconnect with someone in his past. But at the same time, he knew this could put everything he achieved with Emily at risk. Emily, realizing the change, decided to confront Jake, but did not know how to approach the issue without causing a fight. She tried to be cautious, but the tension increased every day. When she asked for the third time about what was happening, Jake had a frustration access. "I'm just trying to make everything right, Emily, and this is being harder than you think," he shouted, and the tension exploded. Emily was in shock. Never before she had heard Jake so changed, so out of control. She knew he was hiding something, but I didn't imagine the situation had already reached that point. What Jake didn't know was that this fight would mark the beginning of something much bigger, something he would never imagine. Jake's discussion with Emily was a break in her relationship. Tension was no longer something that could be ignored, and they both knew they needed space to reflect. Jake, while loved Emily, couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was missing in her life. He felt he had made a mistake by pretending to be someone he wasn't, and that now consumed him in a way he never imagined. After the discussion, Jake decided to get away a little, saying that he needed time to process his feelings. Emily, on the other hand, was devastated. She didn't know if she should stay or move on. The insecurity he had caused returned in full force, and she felt as if the confidence she had in Jake was crumbling like sand between her fingers. While Jake tried to find a way to deal with his own demons, Vanessa took advantage of the breach. She knew she had a chance and was not willing to let it pass. Vanessa was skilled in manipulation and knew exactly what to do to leave Jake in an uncomfortable position as far as he was forced to fall to his net. She invited him to a sophisticated event in an art gallery in the city. Initially, Jake hesitated, but in a moment of weakness, he decided to go. He knew he should keep Vanessa's distance, but at the same time, something inside him pushed him into this meeting. When Jake arrived at the gallery, Vanessa was there wearing a long, flowing dress with a mysterious smile on her face. She knew how to introduce herself. Vanessa's charm and confidence were undeniable, and Jake could not avoid feeling an attraction for her, something he knew he should resist. But the way she looked at him, as if she knew more than he was willing to admit, made him feel even more confused. During the event, Vanessa made a point of approaching Jake and talking to him, teasing him with comments about what was happening in his life. She questioned her choices and made him feel that he was losing something valuable, something she could offer. The conversation extended, and Jake became increasingly vulnerable, with the feeling that he was being tested. Emily, in turn, knew something was wrong. She felt deep into her soul that Jake was moving further away, and something inside her said he was starting to give in to the temptation of his past. When Emily found a message from Vanessa on Jake's cell phone, anger and disappointment took over her. She was right. She knew he was not being transparent, but instead of confronting him directly, Emily decided to take a different attitude. She didn't want to be the woman who chased a man. Instead, she decided to step back and go with her life, seeking independence and space to understand what she really wanted. She sought to focus on her own personal and professional growth, leaving the relationship with Jake in the background. Block 14. Temptation grows. The distance between Jake and Emily widened as the days passed. Emily, determined to move on, began making plans to travel and expand her career. She received a work offer in a nearby city and decided to accept, believing that this could be what she needed to reconnect with herself. Jake, on the other hand, was in a state of constant confusion. He knew he loved Emily, but what Vanessa represented to him seemed difficult to resist. She made him feel like the person he used to be, rich, powerful, and admired. The connection he felt with Vanessa was becoming an escape from simple life and full of insecurities he had with Emily. One night, when Vanessa sought him again, she was straightforward. "Jake, you know what you need to do. Don't let this woman control your life. I know who you are, and I know you deserve more than she can give you." Vanessa's words echoed in Jake's mind. He was seduced by the idea of a life of glamour and status, something he had been deprived for so long. But at the same time, he felt he was cheating on something deep inside. The weight of the lie he created, the choices he made, and the possibility of losing everything he built with Emily began to consume his mind. Meanwhile, Emily was on her way to the city where the new job would begin. She felt good about her decision, but the emptiness in the heart could not be filled so easily. As the days passed, she began to realize that, as much as she wanted to move on, some of her still loved Jake, and the pain of seeing him moving away from her for no reason consumed her slowly. Deep down, she knew their relationship was about to change forever, but didn't know how or when. The real proof of their love and their trust was approaching. In the course of weeks, Jake made several attempts to regain Emily, but something seemed wrong. He felt that their relationship had become too fragile. Reconciliation seemed farther into each failed attempt to contact. When Emily returned to town, for a brief visit, Jake had one last chance to make up. He knew he could lose Emily forever, but was determined to fight for what he felt. During a tense meeting, Emily stared at him, and for the first time asked Jake what he really wanted. Jake, with his eyes loaded with guilt and regret, finally said, "The truth? I was lost, Emily. I walked away from you because I didn't know who I was anymore. I pretended to be someone I am not to prove something to myself. But after all, I realized that deep down, I didn't care about money. I just wanted to be someone you could love." Jake's words echoed in Emily's mind. She wanted to believe him. I wanted to rely again, but the scars he left were not easy to heal. At this point, the story of Jake and Emily reaches an emotional climax. Both are in a path where their choices define the future of their relationship. The pressure to move on and the decisions that still need to be made create the atmosphere for more emotional twists and intense moments. Emily didn't know what to do with Jake's confession. She loved him, but at the same time, he knew that his words were loaded with regret and confusion. Confidence had been broken, and the fear of being deceived again prevented her from taking the next step. She felt she couldn't just rely on Jake, even with him saying she had changed. Jake, on the other hand, knew he had lost precious time. He had lied, walked away from Emily, and thrown out the chance to build a life beside her. He felt that things would never be like before, but he was willing to fight. He loved her and could not imagine her life without her. The following weeks were tense. Emily went to her new job in the neighboring city, and Jake tried to regain her confidence. They were talking, But the coldness in Emily's words showed that, as much as she still loved him, the fear of being hurt was stronger. Jake knew he would need to do something great to prove he was ready to be the man she deserved. It was then that Vanessa appeared again. Vanessa, who had been away for a while, appeared suddenly and tried to approach Jake. She knew he was vulnerable and used it to launch a final blow. She tried to convince him to follow her, implying that the life he could have with her would be much better than anything he had with Emily. She promised him a future of wealth, status, and endless adventures. Jake was divided. He felt he could be happy with Vanessa, but deep down, he knew his heart was with Emily. He loved her, and felt that to be worthy of her love, she would have to fight for her and show that she could be the man she always wanted. It was at this, a time of indecision, that Jake made a crucial decision. He walked away from Vanessa, cut any bond with her, and decided to go as far as she was necessary to regain Emily. No matter what happened, he would prove his love, and to her, who was worthy of his trust. Jake made a bold movement. He planned a great gesture to show Emily that he was serious. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to everything. For that, he had to travel to the city of Emily, something she didn't expect. Emily was in a coffee, working on her laptop when she received a text message from Jake. She hesitated before opening, knowing that anything that came from him could be another disappointment. But the message was simple. I came. I want to show you that I changed. I'll wait for you in the park by the lake where we started. She stood for a moment, staring at her cell phone, and felt a mixture of emotions. She didn't know if she was ready to see Jake again, but something at the bottom of her heart boosted her to go. When Emily arrived at the park, which she found left her speechless, Jake was there, dressed simply, but with an expression she had never seen before. He was not trying to impress her with his money or what he could offer materially. He was there, vulnerable, waiting for her, nothing but his sincerity. Jake looked her in the eye and said, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm here, Emily, because I want to be the man you deserve. I'm no longer looking for anything but your love. There are no secrets. There are no more lies. I want to rebuild what we lose if you leave me. Emily felt a mixture of anger and tenderness. It was hard, she knew, but the pain was starting to be replaced by something stronger, something she had not felt for long, hope. She looked at him and for the first time in weeks put her fears aside. Jake, I still love you, but I'm afraid. Fear of hurting myself again. What are you offering me, really? Just words or actions? Jake stepped forward, taking his hands. I know that words mean nothing without action, and I'll show you with my actions, Emily. I'll give my best, not for me, but for us, for you. The intensity of the moment was undeniable. Emily, with her heart beating hard, knew she was in a crossroads. She could give in, trust again, or leave everything behind and follow alone. It was the hardest decision of your life. However, Emily's life was about to give a new turnaround. The day after the park meeting, something unexpected happened. Emily received an international work proposal that she could not refuse. It was a unique opportunity to expand your career and live a new experience. She was divided between following her professional life or risking Jake again. The dilemma took over her mind, and she knew that was the chance of her life. She could not let her go through a relationship that was still in the reconstruction phase. But Jake, determined, knew what he had to do. He didn't want Emily to make decisions based on fear or past. He wanted her to be happy, whether with him or not. He knew that if she had to go the other part of the world to grow, he would support her. That night, Jake met Emily and surprisingly encouraged her to accept the offer of work. I want you to be happy, Emily, no matter what happens between us. If that's your chance, you need to grasp it. Emily, surprised and played by Jake's generosity, couldn't help but smile. She knew he had matured in ways she never imagined. She was at one point in her life where, regardless of what happened, she needed to be true to herself. When Emily accepted the international work proposal, she knew she was about to change her life in a way that could not be reversed. It was a unique opportunity, something she had always dreamed of, and the chances of growing professionally were huge. But even with the excitement, she felt a great chest pain when thinking of Jake. "I knew that when I leave, something would be left behind." She wondered if this change would be the end of everything between them or just the beginning of a new chapter. Jake, in turn, didn't want to be an obstacle in Emily's life. He had finally understood that true love was not about possessiveness or dependence, but about supporting the beloved in their achievements and dreams. When Emily told him about the work offer, he didn't hesitate. "You have to go, Emily," he said firmly. "I will always be here, but your happiness is more important than anything." Seeing Jake's unconditional support, Emily felt a mixture of gratitude and sadness. She knew that despite her conflicting emotions, she was making the right choice. The decision was not easy, but it was necessary for their growth. She embarked on her new journey with the feeling that life was offering her a rare chance, a chance she couldn't let it out. In the early months abroad, Emily devoted herself to work like never before. The new culture, the dynamic environment, and the challenges of her profession kept her busy, but deep down, she missed Jake. Each message, every connection, was a reminder of what had left behind. But she knew she needed to focus on herself, in her future, and commit to this new phase of her life. However, as his heart still belonged to Jake, the distance seemed to make him an increasingly distant memory. As much as the letters and messages exchanged between them were sweet and missed, Emily knew that time and distance were making things between them more difficult. Their love, which once seemed unbeatable, now became a fine line, with both having to fight their own feelings and insecurities. Jake, during this period, dedicated himself to social causes. He felt that he had been lost for so long in search of something superficial, which now needed to use his position and resources to do something significant. He donated money to charities, created projects aimed at education of needy young people, and actively participated in movements that sought to improve the living conditions of people in vulnerable situations. This not only made him feel good about himself, but he also gave him a new perspective on what really mattered in his life. When Emily returned, she was no longer the same woman who had left. She was more confident, safer from herself, but also more sensitive. She realized that by moving away from Jake, not only found her professional path, but also understood what she wanted in a relationship. She was no longer willing to make concessions that were no beneficial to both. She wanted someone who, like Jake, knew how to grow up with her. Emily and Jake were now at a crucial point of their lives. Both had changed in deep and significant ways. When Emily returned to the United States, she brought with her not only the achievements of her work, but also a new vision about what meant being in a healthy relationship. She knew that love was not something that should be done only of words, but of actions. And as she looked at Jake, she saw more than the man who had been before, saw someone willing to fight, change, and grow beside her. Jake was waiting for her, more mature, calmer, and with an open heart. He knew that to win back Emily, he would need to prove to her that the change he had promised was not just a passing phase, but something genuine. The confidence he knew he had lost needed to be restored, and he was willing to invest the time and effort needed for it. But he also knew he needed to make room for Emily to make her choice. What he feared most was to force something that was not natural. Emily, as she met him, felt something different. It was no longer the overwhelming passion of before, but a sense of calm, of maturity. They were in a new place now, not only geographically, but emotionally. She knew that there was still much to be done, but when she looked at him, she realized that he was willing to go the way with her. They gradually started, finding themselves as friends, sharing their experiences and learning to rediscover each other. No hurry, without expectations that everything would be resolved immediately, but with the certainty that together they could build something more solid, genuine. Jake didn't dodge his mistakes. He never treated her as a Mio to be conquered, but as a partner, someone he wanted to walk with. They became more vulnerable with each other, sharing fears, insecurities, and desires for the future. Emily's love and Jake flourished in a deeper and more true way than ever before. They have learned to respect each other's space, grow together, and support individual dreams and ambitions. Their relationship has transformed not something perfect, but into something real and lasting. They were no longer two people trying to fit into a mold, but two individuals who had found a way to walk side by side, each with their own goals, but united by sincere love. Emily, now more professionally fulfilled, came to understand that love did not mean giving up her own achievements. Jake, in turn, also understood that his value was not only in his wealth or position, but in his ability to be a better and more sensitive man. What really united them was the desire to build a life for two, where both were valued and respected. Over time, Jake made a surprising proposal. He invited her to live together in a house he had bought, not to impress her, but because he felt they were ready to take the next step. He looked at her with his eyes full of sincerity and said, "I don't need anything anymore, Emily, just from you." Emily smiled, and for the first time in a long time, she knew she had found peace. She knew that, as much as their lives had been marked by ups and downs, what mattered now was that together they had overcome adversity and had learned to value what really mattered. Their relationship was no longer about wealth or status, but about mutual growth and genuine love. They knew they would still have challenges ahead, but they were ready to face them together. They had learned that, in the end, true love is not measured by what we have, but for what we are willing to give. And together, they were ready for the future they both deserved. Still, in the next episode, I left a song especially made for this story, for you who accompanied us to the end. I hope you enjoy. Comment on music if I have come here. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy to continue in this format. May God bless you, and until the next exciting story.
Between secrets and lies, the heart does not deceive. They meet, despite the pain that plots them. He with his gaze, full of mysteries and fear. She with her strength, which shines more than the sun of heaven. The city is against them, but together they are stronger. In the end, only both challenging their luck. Together in the storm, facing the wind and the pain. Nothing can stop love, which is stronger than terror. Holding hands, they follow, even when everything falls apart. In the end, it will be the love that saves them, makes them fly like a zone. Hid secrets, a man with the most shadows. She, a brave woman who would risk her soul. But together they discovered the power to love. Even in chaos, they learned to hug. The world may fall, but they have each other. And with each turnaround, their love grows even stronger. No matter how much danger threatens them, what they have is eternal. Nothing can separate them. Together in the storm, facing the wind and the pain. Nothing can stop love, which is stronger than terror. Holding hands, they follow, even when everything falls apart. In the end, it will be the love that saves them, makes them fly like a zone. They fall, but get up, fate calls them. Like a zone, they fall together, they face whatever, and their love becomes their greatest cry. Nothing can destroy what was created. Jake and Emily always together, side by side.